πολιτιστικών αγαθών σε περίπτωση ένοπλης σύραξης αποτέλεσε την πρώτη συστηματική κωδικοποίηση και ουσιαστική ενίσχυση του εξαιρετικά ελλειπούς και αποσπασματικού πρώτερου διεθνούς θεσμικού πλαισίου για την προστασία των πολιτιστικών αγαθών σε καιρό πολέμου. Οι τραγικές συνέπειες δύο παγκοσμίων και αναρρύθμιτων περιφερειακών σειράξεων είχαν ήδη αναδείξει την αναγκαιότητα συγκρότησης και αποδοχής ενός ευρύτερου πλαισίου θεμελιωδών οικουμενικών κανόνων ανθρωπισμού και πολιτισμού, στο οποίο όφιλε να συμπεριληφθεί και η πολιτιστική κληρονομιά. Μία από τις πολυάριθμες σχετικές δράσεις που εκπορεύτηκαν από τη Σύμβαση υπήρξε και η καθιέρωση του συμβόλου της μπλε ασπίδας ως πολιτιστικού ισοδύναμου του Ερυθρού Σταυρού για τη σήμανση ιστορικών τόπων και μνημείων που χρήζουν σεβασμού και προστασίας σε περίπτωση σύγκρουσης. Η μπλε ασπίδα έγινε επίσης το έμβλημα της ομώνυμης Διεθνούς Επιτροπής που συστήθηκε το 1996 από τις μεγαλύτερες διεθνείς πολιτιστικές, μη κυβερνητικές οργανώσεις και έθεσε εν συνεχεία τις βάσεις ενός ευρύτερου δικτύου φορέων και οργανισμών σε εθνικό επίπεδο υπό την εποπτεία του Συνδέσμου Εθνικών Επιτροπών της Μπλε Ασπίδας. Κατανοώντας τη σημασία και το ρόλο του διεθνούς αυτού δικτύου στην προστασία των πολιτιστικών αγαθών, όχι μόνο κατά τη διάρκεια πολεμικών σειράξεων, αλλά και απέναντι σε μία πληθώρα σύγχρονων προκλήσεων, όπως οι κίνδυνοι από τις φυσικές καταστροφές που ενσκύπτουν με διαρκώς αυξανόμενη συχνότητα εξαιτίας της κλιματικής αλλαγής. Και λειτουργώντας ως προς αυτό σε πλήρη αρμονία και συνέργεια με τη Διεθνή Ελληνική Πρωτοβουλία για τη διαφύλαξη της φυσικής και πολιτιστικής κληρονομιάς από τις επιπτώσεις της κλιματικής αλλαγής, η οποία υποστηρίζεται από την UNESCO και περισσότερα από 100 κράτη-μέλη, μία ομάδα έγκριτων εμπειρογνωμόνων από διάφορους κλάδους προχώρησε το 2019 στην ίδρυση του ελληνικού τμήματος της Διεθνούς Επιτροπής Μπλε Ασπίδα, καθιστώντας την Ελλάδα την πρώτη χώρα της Νοτιοανατολικής Ευρώπης που συγκροτεί σχετική Εθνική Επιτροπή. Στα 4 χρόνια της λειτουργίας της, η Ελληνική Επιτροπή της Μπλε Ασπίδας έχει ήδη αναπτύξει πλούσια και πολύπλευρη δράση με συμμετοχή σε διεθνείς ερευνητικές συμπράξεις και έργα, υλοποίηση εκπαιδευτικών προγραμμάτων και εργαστηρίων, καθώς και διοργάνωση επιστημονικών συνεδρίων και εκδηλώσεων. Σε αυτό ακριβώς το πλαίσιο δράσεων εντάσσεται και το σημερινό Διεθνές Συνέδριο, στόχος του οποίου είναι η παρουσίαση και ο απολογισμός του ευρωπαϊκού έργου ReInΗerit, υπό το πρίσμα των στόχων της βιώσιμης ανάπτυξης και ειδικότερα των πυλώνων της κοινωνικής, οικονομικής, περιβαλλοντικής βιωσιμότητας, της ειρήνης και της ασφάλειας, τομείς οι οποίοι είναι άρρηκτα συνδεδεμένοι με τους στόχους του έργου. Το πρόγραμμα ReInΗerit προτείνει ένα πρωτοποριακό πρότυπο αειφόρου διαχείρισης του πολιτιστικού αποθέματος, που βασίζεται στη δημιουργία ενός δυναμικού δικτύου ερευνητών και επαγγελματιών της πολιτιστικής κληρονομιάς, εκπροσώπων τοπικών αρχών, πολιτιστικών φορέων, μουσείων και τοποθεσιών που έχουν λάβει το σήμα της Ευρωπαϊκής Πολιτιστικής Κληρονομιάς European Heritage Label, καθώς και ειδικών εμπειρογνωμόνων στους τομείς των νέων ψηφιακών τεχνολογιών, της επικοινωνίας και της διαχείρισης. Όλοι αυτοί διασυνδέονται, διαλέγονται και συνδημιουργούν μέσω ενός καινοτόμου και ολοκληρωμένου οικοσυστήματος ψηφιακών εφαρμογών, επικοινωνίας, ανάπτυξης, συνεργασιών, ανταλλαγής και διαμοιρασμού τεχνογνωσίας πόρων και εργαλείων συνεργασίας, δημιουργίας και επιμέλειας και προβολής πολιτιστικού περιεχομένου, καθώς και καλών πρακτικών βιώσιμης διαχείρισης σε πολλούς επιμέρους τομείς. Με την παρούσα ευκαιρία θα ήθελα να ευχαριστήσω και να συγχαρώ από καρδιάς το Διοικητικό Συμβούλιο και τα μέλη της Ελληνικής Επιτροπής της Μπλε Ασπίδας για το ήδη σημαντικό τους έργο, καθώς και για την πρωτοβουλία της διοργάνωσης του σημερινού συνεδρίου. Η πραγματοποίηση του συνεδρίου αυτού με άρτιο και αποτελεσματικό τρόπο δεν θα ήταν φυσικά δυνατή χωρίς τη συνδρομή της Επιστημονικής και της Οργανωτικής Επιτροπής, καθώς και τη συμμετοχή των έγκριτων ομιλητών από την Ελλάδα και το εξωτερικό, που χρήζουν επίσης της δέουσας αναγνώρισης. Πρωτίστως, βεβαίως, θερμές ευχαριστίες και συγχαρητήρια οφείλονται προς τους εταίρους του έργου ReInΗerit για τη σημαντική συμβολή τους στην κοινή προσπάθεια ανανέωσης, εξυγχρονισμού και εμπλουτισμού του κλάδου της πολιτιστικής διαχείρισης με νέα εργαλεία και μέσα που ενισχύουν τη διεθνή και διατομεακή συνεργασία, την κοινοφιλοσύνη της γνώσης και εν τέλει την αποτελεσματικότητα στην αντιμετώπιση των αναγκών και των προκλήσεων τόσο του παρόντος όσο και του μέλλοντος. Εύχομαι καλή επιτυχία στις εργασίες σας. Δόκτωρ Λίνα Μενδώνη, Υπουργός Πολιτισμού. And now, my honorable speakers and participants, dear friends and colleagues, I would first like to start by saying that I am extremely happy to be with you today, as this is my first day in the outside world after my hip operation. Welcome to all attendees who have honored us with their presence here or online, and I salute the beginning of the International Conference, Cultural Heritage, Innovation and Sustainable Development, the contribution of ReInΗerit, which is organized by the Hellenic Committee of the Blue Shield in the framework of the Horizon 2020 project ReInΗerit, redefining the future of cultural heritage. It is the first time such an event is organized by the ReInΗerit program, and it gives us great pleasure to have you all with us. The ReInΗerit project is proposing an innovative model of sustainable heritage management through the creation of a dynamic network comprised of cultural heritage professionals, innovation and cultural heritage solution tech experts, researchers, national museums, regional and local museums, and representative managers of the European Heritage Label sites. The proposed ReInΗerit model is based on the development of a digital cultural heritage ecosystem where all the key stakeholders, museums, heritage sites, policymakers, professionals, and communities will have an open and collaborative friendly space to experiment, share, and innovate. This will be achieved through the creation of an innovative cultural digital hub. Furthermore, tools and resources like training, tourism, conservation, preservation, knowledge creation, content use or reuse, combat of illicit trafficking of cultural goods that are of absolute importance for sustainable management will be shared through the digital platform that hosts the ecosystem. The project's ecosystem also aspires to be an experiential, open-ended space that will support, in general, generate entrepreneurial initiatives knowledge produced through co-creation, curation of digital content, and visitor experiences. I would like to thank the officials from all the important cultural NGOs, most of all, the president of Blue Shield International, Professor Peter Staub, and all distinguished speakers for accepting our invitation, our ReInΗerit partners, as well as the scientific and the organizing committee of this conference. Mostly, I would like to thank Antonia Zervaki, Katerina Dimitriadi, and Sofia Stavrianopoulou for their efforts and great dedication to the success of our conference. This conference principally aims at assessing the contribution of ReInΗerit to sustainable development by bringing together policymakers, researchers, and academics of various disciplines, as well as experts that work for the project in order to discuss the pillars of social, economic, and environmental sustainability, as well as peace and security. All these are policy domains that are inextricably linked with the objectives of the program. Thank you for being with us, and I look forward to all the interesting presentation and discussions, and of course I will follow online due to obvious reasons. So, wishing success to all, I close by saying, culture people, keep on walking against all odds. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Now, I would like to give the floor to Andrea Ratiu, representing the Cultural Bank of Cyprus, the lead ReInΗerit partner, who is going to welcome the audience. Andrea, the floor to you. Thank you.
Dear organizers, dear guests, it is with great pleasure as the project manager of the ReInΗerit project and on behalf of the Bank of Cyprus Cultural Foundation that I extend my warm greetings as we embark on this promising conference organized by the Hellenic Committee of the Blue Shield. The conference is organized within the framework of the ReInΗerit project, and we are excited about the prosperity of knowledge, ideas and innovation that will unfold during this event. I'm sure your commitment to fostering discussions on cultural heritage, innovation and sustainable development is commendable, and we believe that the outcomes of this conference will not only significantly contribute to the ongoing dialogue, but also prove to be beneficial for the ReInΗerit partners, further boosting the progress of our collective project. As Mrs. Korka has already referred to the ReInΗerit project, I would like to draw your attention to the most important outcome of the ReInΗerit of the project, the ReInΗerit Digital Hub. It is expected that the Digital Hub, a creation with the contribution of all partners, will be an essential tool for existing and future users, as it already hosts and will host all the results and work carried out during the ReInΗerit project's life cycle. The ReInΗerit Digital Hub is a digital cultural heritage ecosystem in which, on the one hand, all the stakeholders, heritage professionals, researchers, policymakers, communities, tourist destination authorities, DMOs, and so on, will be provided with the tools and resources to communicate and experiment with and innovate and disseminate European cultural heritage, as Mrs. Korka already mentioned. And on the other hand, it is addressed to the wider research community and public interested in heritage who will find engaging content. We anticipate that specific professionals, particularly those in smaller museums, will derive benefits from the ready-made content and applications offered by the Digital Hub. These resources will be selectively applied based on the individual needs of each museum, with the overarching goal of delivering cutting-edge technologies to enhance the experience of their visitors. Webinars, research fact sheets, toolkit applications and their documentation, exhibitions material, podcasts, and eShop are only some of the ReInΗerit digital hub components. And Felipe Badela and I will elaborate more on one of the aspects of this hub during our presentation later today. I would like to urge you to visit the ReInΗerit hub and discover all the work that has been done so far. Thank you for your continued support and active participation. Wishing you all the best for a fruitful conference and valuable discussions.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Oratiu. And now I would like Mrs. ReInΗerit, representing ReInΗerit partner, University of Nicosia, to give us an introduction to the ReInΗerit project with her presentation on a sustainable management plan for museums and cultural heritage institutions. Thank you for being here with us today.
Thank you very much for inviting me to this very interesting conference, and I would like to speak about Culture Heritage Management Plan for Museums that was part of Work Package 1, and it formed the basis of the packages that were to follow. This is a paper that I have prepared with my dear colleague, Konstantinos Roussos, that could not attend this meeting, and therefore I will be presenting for both of us. As you know, this project involves partners from different countries of the European Union, different institutions and researchers that have combined forces to deliver an outcome. Now, ReInΗerit's mission is to disrupt the current status quo of communication, collaboration and innovation exchange between museums and cultural heritage sites by coming up with a new model, in fact, scanning the challenges, needs of the time and offering some practical solutions. The aim of this presentation is to emphasize the critical role of cultural heritage management, I will be referring to it as CHA, for museums, and bring forward the main issues and principles that need to be taken into account during the drafting procedure of a CHM plan. Now, despite the fact that cultural heritage management has been recognized as a strategic process that guarantees the long-term protection of cultural heritage, many museums, especially smaller ones, continue to suffer from insufficient management due to lack of funding and support, as well as the pressures of ongoing crises, and we have experienced quite a few of them lately. In this respect, they need guidance in order to develop a realistic and detailed CHA plan. And this is a key process that must be properly integrated into a sustainable model of CHA for museums. What is a cultural heritage management plan? It is a dynamic document that explains management issues, approaches, and requirements relating to museums, and sets a framework for decision-making over a given period of time. It should be a clear and coherent plan for action, a guide for the future, and it should identify areas of strength to build on, weaknesses to be addressed, and opportunities to be exploited. It needs to ensure that everyone in the organization is on the same page, and overall, it is a management tool for museums to use in planning their future activities and operations. Now, what are the main objectives of such a plan? It has to protect the values of cultural heritage for present and future generations, promote effective sustainability practices, improve museums' operation, help museums reposition themselves in an ever-changing world in order to be more relevant to their audiences and serve society better. What are the main steps for a successful cultural heritage management plan? Step 1, prepare it. In order to prepare a successful CHM plan, it is important to look outside the organization and understand how the external environment is changing. In other words, it is crucial to understand the needs, challenges, and opportunities of the era. It will help museums to address these threats and challenges and at the same time stay relevant and pursue its mission effectively. Museums need to act as a major resource for resilience, connection, recovery, and positive change, contributing to the creation of inclusive, peaceful, and sustainable societies in this ever-changing environment. In this context, and in the context of the ReInΗerit project, the current status quo of the cultural heritage sector in Europe was mapped so as to achieve an overview of the current needs, challenges, and opportunities. In a nutshell, because there was a lot of work done and many things have been identified, to which I cannot refer right now, I have tried to put in a nutshell what we really came down to. So, the needs that were identified were for interdisciplinary collaboration so as to avoid fragmentations, redefine the relationship between museums and the various audiences, redefine the management of collections based on evolving ethical standards and new trends, sustainable business models resilient to changes and crises, and the need for environmentally friendly museums. Step 2, design a cultural heritage management plan. The design of such a plan should be based on the following principles: on open-minded, out-of-the-box, holistic vision, on people-centered and environmentally friendly approach to CHM, a clear orientation towards the ideas of sustainability and resilience as a framework for the development of long-term strategic culture policies, and the rethinking of current practices, modes of operation, and managerial organization. The need of commitment to the concepts of inclusivity, relevance, innovation, accessibility, democratization, ethics, diversity, professionalism, cooperation, and community participation. A clear knowledge of the application of digital technologies, methods, tools, and so on, which are of relevance to cultural heritage and can help one in its mission. What are the common denominators? It is all the aforementioned principles that should underline and inspire any decision taken and policy introduced or followed by a museum or a cultural heritage institution. Now, you see on your screen here what are the major issues that almost every cultural heritage management plan should address. So, in order to take into consideration the big pictures, it should address collections management, audience and local communities engagement, communication, energy and environmental management, IP management, new business models, and financing. These are the areas we have dealt with during this project. However, since there isn't enough time, I will focus on only two of them, the ones you see in red on your screen. So, audience and local communities engagement. It is important for any CHA plan to overcome the obstacles in reaching cultural heritage audience and set an audience development strategy. The goal is to engage more people with cultural heritage, and museums should begin by successfully targeting the types of audiences that have been overlooked, such as young people and local communities, and we have done a lot of work in this area. At the same time, they should refresh the culture offer for existing audiences by developing new experiences and deepening their relationships with them. The ReInΗerit project stresses the importance that young people should appear as a distinct target visitor group in a wide range of activities included in the plan, such as audience development, collection management, marketing, digitization, exhibition, and so on. Some recommendations for reaching young audience is to understand, first of all, young audience in order to determine their specific needs, as well as to better understand how they perceive cultural heritage, how they want to engage with it, and what is important to them. Also, promote real-time dialogue between young people and the cultural heritage professionals, foreign websites, social media, and so on. And train cultural heritage professionals in audience research, marketing, and communication. Introduce seminars, games, and digital tools, as evidenced by the visitor survey conducted by the ReInΗerit project. Young museum visitors varying from 18 to 29 as well as from 30 to 44 are more likely to use digital tools in a museum environment. Younger people in general have a strong tendency to be interested in technology-related experience and in gamification approaches. develop a communication strategy, in particular social media policies targeting young people. And according to the primary research of this project, young people get information about the service offerings of museums through recommendations from friends via social media channels. And now moving on to the second thing, which is intellectual property management. IP is a set of legal rights aiming to protect the fruits of the human intellect by providing to right holders absolute and exclusive rights on a territorial basis. By IP, we mean copyright, and we also mean industrial property rights. And these are all absolute and exclusive rights in the sense that they belong only to their beneficiary, and they may be asserted against anyone and may be, of course, violated by anyone. In a nutshell, IP management helps museums to set up processes to identify, organize, own, create value, license, disseminate, and generally deal with and leverage business opportunities in relation to content. There are three pillars in IP management. First, how to protect effectively your IP assets, and these can be assets that can be acquired by purchase, donation, and so on, or can be possessed on loan, or having been created by the employees of a museum or a cultural organization. This also helps museums generate income and create added value from their collections and intangible assets. The second pillar is to prevent the infringement of third-party IP rights when you use third-party content. And the third pillar is disseminate content as a museum or a cultural heritage institution sees appropriate. Licensing it, for example, offer it with standardized terms, offer it for free, and so on. Now, IP management has a spillover effect. In fact, it also helps keep good records, draft good contracts, licenses, and agreements, standardize the aforementioned contracts for easiness, and introduce consistent practices, track ownership and rights, realize what else should have been acquired or what should be acquired now, something that the museum does not have and wants, in fact, to exploit. Record what the museum is allowed to do by law, and record what the museum is allowed to do on the basis of the rights acquired or licensed so far. Also, identify what is still under protection and what has fallen into the public domain. Identify contractual obligations, monitor infringements, and decide on dispute resolution. Attach proper legal notices, credit lines, framing and linking, terms and conditions of website use, create guidelines and training courses for employees, make strategic options, whether, for example, to register rights, offer open licenses, or offer something for free, and so on. Now, what are the basic principles? Is that even museums that have legal title to own collection items cannot freely reproduce these items unless they have authorization from the right holders. IP and content created by no staff, such as volunteers, students, or those commissioned, contractors, and interns, belongs to them and not to the museum. This is things I have also experienced in practice, because sometimes the museums or cultural heritage institutions believe that because they have a painting, they can exploit the painting as they see fit. And the only thing they have is the carrier, the painting itself, and they do not have the rights underpinned in order to be able to exploit it. Also, IP created by employees usually belong to the museum if the work is created in the context of their duties. So we need to be very firm as to what the duties of each employee are. In case of exhibitions on loan, contracts should provide, amongst other things, what the rights of exploitation of the artifacts images are, whether they can be reproduced in catalogs and so on, and just, a proposal to be on the safe side, draft succinct and clear contracts, and ask for expert advice. So, museums need to have clear policies as to how one can take pictures in the museum. They need to have clear policies as to how pictures of objects in their collections are to be exploited or licensed. They need also to think forward. When they acquire an object, they need to think of all potential means of exploitation if this object is still under IP protection. For example, if they want to reproduce items within exhibition spaces, online, on posters, promote exhibitions or other events, create postcards, sell items in their shops, and so on. So when a museum takes authorization, it should not also forget to include online uses. And last but not least, you need to keep a record if you're a museum of all authorizations and agreements. And that brings me to step 3, which is the implementation of Cultural Heritage Plan. I don't have enough time to discuss that. I just want to say by concluding that a Cultural Heritage Management Plan has the potential to help museums and cultural heritage institutions to tackle a complex reality with multiple challenges and bottlenecks that create specific urgent needs. Museums that develop a Cultural Heritage Management Plan are better prepared for the present and the future, and are more likely to fulfill their mission and vision in an ever-changing environment compared to museums which continue to follow traditional operating methods that do not respond to the needs of the modern era. Thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you, Mrs. Stamatouthi. Now, this is the end of the opening session. I would like to call the first moderator of the session, the first session, Mrs. Antonia Zervaki, to join us. And the speakers, of course, who have joined us here in Athens. That is Jaime Lopez from Arte Sostenible, Mr. Manos Voulioukas, and Nefeli Pantela from the Museum of Cycladic Art. Please join us here.
Thank you so much, Katerina. I would like to welcome you on my behalf in Athens and in our conference. We will begin immediately with the first session concerning social sustainability and the contribution of ReInΗerit. And I'm very happy and honored that Alexandra Xanthaki, Professor of Laws at Cornell University in the UK, and the UN Special Rapporteur in the field of cultural rights, could be with us today, even virtually, to share her thoughts on cultural heritage, cultural rights, and human development. I would immediately give the floor to Professor Xanthaki. No? Not connected?
Not connected.
Η Κατερίνα μου είπε ότι ήταν μέσα πριν από λίγο.
Μήπως έχει συνδεθεί από κάποιο άλλο λογαριασμό. Δεν είναι αυτό το άλλο.
Μπορούμε να στείλουμε ένα mail στην κυρία Xanthaki. So, unfortunately, we have some technical problems, so I will give the floor to Jaime Lopez, who who is a dear colleague and partner in the ReInΗerit consortium. And he has done many things, he's got an extremely expanded curriculum from architect to, sorry, he has worked as an art curator, as a teacher, and I could say he's a mentor, both of cultural and entrepreneurial culture, and in terms of teaching and training professionals in the cultural domain. So we are very happy to have you with us today. And we're looking forward to listen to your presentation on the ReInΗerit handbook on museums and heritage sites. I give the floor to another speaker. She has to wait now. Okay, sorry. Δεν μπορούμε να βάλουμε, σας παρακαλώ κάποιος να έρθει εδώ να βρούμε τα PowerPoint. Or the mouse, what do you prefer? This one? Perfect.
Everyone, thank you for inviting me to this great conference. Yes, you can listen. Okay, so the purpose of this presentation is to introduce the handbook on museum and cultural heritage site collaboration and communication. Is a publication frame into the ReInΗerit project, which corresponds to the deliverable 5.2. Artists Australia has coordinated and written the handbook in collaboration with ECTN and with the support of other institutions from the ReInΗerit consortium, such as Bank of Cyprus, Cultural Foundation, the Psychiatric Art Museum, the University of Florence, and the Glass Museum. The handbook's contents are based on key findings on data collection. We have been working on consultation, internal and external experts, and all kinds of documents from the ICOMOS, UNESCO, Europa Nostra, etc. The overall objective of the ReInΗerit project is to create a digital cultural heritage ecosystem with an express open-ended space, as the scholar has said a few minutes ago, in order to get all these professionals to collaborate, curation, content, experimentation, etc. So this digital hub is going to host all this ecosystem, and this handbook is one of the resources and training for the project. What's the handbook for? The ReInΗerit handbook has been crafted to meet the needs, interests of any kind of stakeholder across the cultural heritage and cultural tourist sectors. Our focus is offering a comprehensive resource that caters to professionals associated with diverse cultural heritage institutions and organizations. Based on the ReInΗerit project visions, the handbook aims at providing practical guidance for the improvement of collaboration and communication between museums, heritage sites, and the cultural tourism sector in order to optimize the flow of knowledge between professionals and the cultural experience, even of visitors. And what is that vision about? That vision is to understand that collaboration and communication and inherent agents in addressing and solving the various challenges that museum heritage sites are facing today. So this communication and collaboration are the two pieces that are going to help us to solve and to reach that challenges. So the thematic priorities addressed in the handbook are developed through three central pillars, as you see in this slide, that are digitalization, sustainability, and continuous professional development. And then all the tasks related to that central pillars that are going to be develop in the handbook. The ReInΗerit handbook also addresses and contributes to solving the various challenges facing museums, heritage sites, and even the cultural tourism sector. The extensive research conducted by the ReInΗerit project has identified 7 dimensions of the key collaboration and communication challenges arising for these radical transformations of the sector. Here, in the slide, you can see the 7 sections, dimensions: staff cooperation, ethical issues, legal and ethical issues, digitalization, funding, audiences, climate change, and cultural tourism. So what we have done is, like, apart from detect the dimension, is to write the obstacles that institutions, museums, etc. should overcome, and then what is the challenge to achieve in the following years. Additionally, the ReInΗerit handbook thematic exploration align itself with the Sustainable Development Goals and the Horizon 2020 program. In this sense, the handbook to empower museums, heritage sites, and the cultural tourism sector to adopt an active role in fostering global sustainability while contributing to the inherent mission of cultural preservation and knowledge dissemination. And all these goals are addressed in chapter I will explain later, number 3, devoted to this relationship between professionals, and also in chapter number 4 and number 5, when we are dealing with issues like inclusion, like accessibility, like, for instance, awareness about climate change, etc. How is the handbook organized? Well, the ReInΗerit handbook is organized to provide attention to communication and collaboration, as I have said, and is divided in 7 chapters. The first chapter is about project details, handbook objectives, methodological files of the project. The second chapter is about all type of key definitions of museum, cultural heritage sites, cultural tourism, and the core of the handbook is in chapter number 3, 4, and 5, in which we are dealing with this communication and collaboration. First of all, number 3, between professionals in the sector, and number 4, with people, with the public, who are coming to the museums and to heritage sites. Number 5 is totally devoted to the cultural tourism sector. Number 6 is the principles of the program, of the handbook, of the sector, how to develop all these recommendations, and how, very important, the ReInΗerit project is going to contribute in the future for this program. Finally, number 7 is our reference bibliography of the project. At the beginning of chapter 3, 4, and 5, we have included very interesting maps of audiences and stakeholders who can intervene in communication and cooperation dynamics. With these general maps, both professionals and those interested in the area can have a general overview of the actors who can energize and participate in current communication dynamics in the cultural, heritage, and tourism sectors. The manual is also plenty of graphics, boxes with current examples, with practices even, and finally, to facilitate self-reflection, at the end of this section, we have included this box called Make It Your Own. Make It Your Own is the slogan of the ReInΗerit project. It's very important to optimize daily practice and finally to reinforce the knowledge of people who are going to use this handbook. And with regard to the topic of this first session, this conference, the social dimension of sustainable development is addressed mainly in chapter number 4.2 of the handbook, recommendations of sustainable communication between museums and visitors, and focus in two aspects: accessibility and social inclusion. In the current context, museums have the imperative to know how to move and grow as an open space where the different identities, local communities, etc. can take place. We need to ensure that museums of exercise belong to everyone and are for everyone. So it's important to eliminate these multiple barriers with groups underrepresented in the community of at risk of social exclusion. It's important to know, to let museums to develop the social role in the community and to know in the territory who are these people in order to interact with them. So in the handbook, as you see here, you can see that we are providing with a program for social inclusion initiatives in museums and heritage sites, for instance, cultural revitalization and collaborative curation. It's important to engage with people for curation of exhibitions, artistic inspiration and revitalization of the arts, incorporation of cultural appropriate collection care, taking into account the knowledge of the people who are belonging to that communities, for example, in terms of restorations of art, enhancing the museum knowledge of the collections, laws for museums and community exhibition programming, and cultural use of museum collections, and finally providing input on the museum's public programs, including presentations and planning. We are also giving some steps to generate an inclusive process. It's important to make a diagnosis of groups that may be at risk of exclusion in the territory, in local areas, identify their main problems, and to design a collaboration action plan that includes representatives and members of underrepresented groups so they can participate, design a plan for approaching the community in case there is an opportunity, planning an appropriate strategy for the dissemination and diffusion of knowledge with these groups, and finally encourage a dialogue, table discussion, and activities from visitors, etc. And the other issue related to social sustainability is addressing the accessibility. Accessibility refers to providing equal access to all people, regardless of their physical, cognitive, or experiential ability. This also refers to the process by which organizations enable multiple audiences to make a sense of culture in different ways. So it's really one of the means of the inclusion of audiences. So in this sense, we recommend the DALCO criteria that is proposed by the Spanish Standardization Agency, was proposed in 2007, that can be applied to evaluate and strengthen accessibility in three areas, as you can see here: mobility, communication, and cognitivity. DALCO means deambulation, apprehension, location, and communication. This is a criteria that was at the beginning designed for the environment, but then it was moved into other aspects, like for instance, cultural heritage institutions. So in mobility, we are talking about the physical space, constructive aspects, furnishing, optical marking, accessible exhibitions, rest areas, accessible restroom. Then we are talking about the communication, the diversity of situations in the physical or virtual tool that can provide non-limiting information to specific conditions of the person, generating an environment of clarity, usability, and access to information of different formats and languages. That means diversity of languages, braille systems, oral, auditory, written, audiovisual support, simplicity, and clarity of messages. And then is the message, it's cognitivity, how these people are going to understand all our messages, because we need that communication with the audiences. It's referring to all the theoretical, practical aspects that offer degrees of complexity for the assimilation and understanding. Use of different degrees of structure or complexity in ranges of activities, and the use of simple concepts transmitted into a clear way to explain complex issues, multisensory exploration devices. We are also giving some tips on accessibility strategies applied to missions sites, like creating multisensory communicative experiences to visitors with sensory on sensor motor intelligence, or designing exhibitions, conceiving a narrative by appealing a wide range of senses at the same time, which can include tactical experiences, audio guides, and interactive exhibits, and disseminating them, developing and disseminating exciting aspects of sensory sensitive audiences with designated quiet areas, for instance, creating social stories within communication media channels that explain what visitors can expect when they visit the museum, in social stories, even creating social stories that lead narratives that communicate content information in a paper way sometimes, and communicating the existence of different services from reading rooms of spaces for childcare, sitting areas, and services including wheelchairs, strollers, and etc. And finally, I wanted to give some policy concluding remarks related to social sustainability. The first one is that we need inclusive digital upskilling initiatives. We need to invest in programs to upskill the digital literacy of all age groups and educational backgrounds. And we need to work with cultural heritage organizations and provide funding to develop digital upskilling programs that are tailored to the needs of the sector. It's something, a problem that we detected in the ReInΗerit project when we did our research about these little and medium organizations, mission heritage sites that didn't have the funding to develop all these recommendations we are giving. So we need this funding for them. And the second one policy is community-focused mission policies. We need to implement solutions that make local communities more welcoming and accessible to museums, establishing mutually beneficial relationships, to provide funding of cultural heritage organizations to reduce admission fees, offer free admissions, or developing programs that specifically target underserved communities, and finally encourage cultural heritage organizations to reach out to local communities and develop partnerships with other organizations in the community. It's like to follow all this new role of the museum that has been approved last year, that puts in the center the people. No? We are serving the people. Well, with these recommendations, I finish my presentation. Thank you very much. Have any questions?
I found very interesting your reference to the standardization processes concerning social systems accessibility and social inclusion. And this means that we do have, we are witnessing a way, you see, from promoting cultural rights, human rights in general, to implementing special and practical dimensions when it comes to museums and heritage sites. So thank you so much. I would like to ask whether Professor Xanthaki is connected, and I would like to apologize for keeping her waiting. We had to fill in the gap.
We'll have to connect the other.
As I mentioned earlier, Professor Xanthaki is a leading expert on cultural rights. She's a professor at Brunel University, and she has, but also a practitioner, very experienced practitioner in the domain of human rights, and especially cultural rights. She has served the United Nations implementing different mandates, and she has also advised several states on human rights issues. We are delighted to have you with us, Professor Xanthaki. And just a minute, we cannot hear you. We cannot hear you.
Something to the audio allowance.
Just a minute. Professor Xanthaki? Yes. Yes. Yes, we can see you and we can hear you. We did it. Fortunately, it's a program about innovation. Just imagine what would have happened if it weren't the case.
Sorry, the voice is a little bit problematic. I think you can hear me.
I think we can hear you. Yes. The voice is the microphone.
Έχει κάποιο καλώδιο. Έχουμε το καλώδιο.
Εγώ σας ακούω. Να κάνουμε μία δοκιμή, κυρία Xanthaki. Ναι, ναι, πολύ καλύτερα. So, you have the floor and I apologize. Yes, of course. Yes, of course. Thank you. Yes? Professor Xanthaki? You may start, Professor Xanthaki.
Thank you.
Thank
So,
you.
It's a pleasure to be here, even though virtually. I'm not sure that I can be here today. So, first of all, who am I? I am the United Nations Center of Awareness and Cultural Rights. United Nations Center of Awareness and Independent experts which are appointed by the United Nations. So I do not represent Greece and I will be appointed or selected I am appointed by the Awareness Council of the main board of the United Nations on human rights. We are Monday, and I appointed for 3+ years. I am a Senate Special Representative of Cultural Rights. My predecessor was a British elite who was appointed at the beginning of this mandate. I then was carrying out the United Nations Rights to Cyprus on an official basis. The functions that I have are to first monitor the implementation of cultural rights, and second, to role of whether cultural rights have been implemented. So I went on my very official visit to Germany, and the next one is Jordan, and then Chile. And finally, I also received confidential email messages from civil society and everyone who actually informed me of alleged violations, and I entered into confidential discussion with the state. And then if the state does not achieve adequate responses or did not implement what they have undertaken as obligations on international rights law, I name and shame. And one of the main functions is also like the monthly reports that we presented to discuss the Human Rights Council and the states discussing these issues in Geneva, but also for the UN General Assembly. And the first say that the topic of this conference is very much linked to that, as for the last 2 years I have presented reports and discussed the states on the General Assembly, recommendations on developments and cultural rights. So it's very interesting, I just have to say that it's very interesting that obviously I am Greek, Latina after years of consistency looking at the world, so I left that against the UK, and I have presented human rights and now has had since the beginning of the procedures in the United States. So, the cultural rights are very much linked to cultural heritage, and I was very interested to hear how the very eloquent talk of the message of the Minister for Culture was talked about the UNESCO instruments, and indeed the UNESCO instrument that was talking about is very important, but it does focus indeed mainly in times of war and about islands that have been stolen, mainly in big conflicts, is a very real concern of the international community. However, in the discussion of cultural heritage, we have pushed aside political concerns. Obligation to states to ensure that everyone has the right to access and participation to their culture. And this is on their own as an individual, but by I believe the Spanish. So I think that it is very important, and my job in this 6 years situation is to ensure heritage, and I was delighted that he talked about this. So participation is more and more recent buzzword, in the sense that we're not interested only on access, giving access, which is very important and still has a lot of obstacles, but we're also interested in participation. In this respect, participation, the buzzword, the right to cultural heritage is very much linked to the current discussions on sustainable development. And it's something that we have to emphasize. About the right to access and enjoy cultural heritage, in 2011, my predecessor has completed a report which forms the basis of our discussion, of my discussion on the right to cultural heritage, and she has stressed that cultural heritage is important not only in health, but also for individuals and communities in terms of both their identity and development processes. And it can be found the various, and it's interlinked with various human rights norms. So mainly it is about the right of individuals and communities to understand, enter, visit, make use of, maintain, and exchange cultural heritage, as well as to benefit from cultural heritage and the creation of others. And as I mentioned, the emphasis has been on the right to participate in the identification of cultural heritage, in the interpretation of cultural heritage, in the development of historical heritage, and in designing and implementing practices to safeguard it. So I think that this is something that relates very much to sustainable development. In my report in last year and this year before the General Assembly, I said that sustainable development is seen very much still as economic. And I'm extremely worried that after all these discussions that we have had, culture has not taken its right place as a fourth dimension of sustainable development. In this respect, cultural heritage is being mentioned. So, Sustainable Development Goal 11.4 calls for efforts to protect the world's cultural and natural heritage. But again, you will see that we are talking about protection of heritage, not the right heritage. And we are talking about the world's cultural and natural heritage. We don't talk about the various aspects of cultural heritage. And sometimes, people say, well, why is it important? We cannot protect everything. Why is it important? And even more so, why is it important that we have a fourth dimension of sustainable development and cultural development? I don't really understand how the local society or an individual can develop without awareness and understanding of their identity, awareness and understanding of the identity of people around them. I don't understand how we can talk about development of an individual if we do not talk about development practices, understanding of where they come from, appreciation of what happened in the past, and re-regulation and revisiting of what happened in the past in order to move on to the future and take decisions on how to move on to the future. I don't genuinely understand how economic development is going to be sustainable if it is not based on the values and the philosophies, so the living cultural heritage of the people concerned. So in this respect, I'm very happy to receive the contribution of the Hellenic Republic when I was doing the report on Greece, where it says that culture in Greece is recognized as the fourth pillar of development. And I can see this is know that there are academics, social scientists that focus on that a lot more than I have focused from the legal point of view. However, it is very important for me to say that culture includes cultural heritage. So the right to culture includes any aspect of the right to cultural heritage. And this is the only way forward that I can see as the only way that makes sense. So in my report on development and cultural rights, which is very close to sustainable development, human development, and cultural heritage, I set out 5 principles, and you can find my report in the webpage, the Legal Session Covered Cultural Rights. I said that any policies on policies have to include cultural development, that sustainable development has to revert technologies and stereotypes, sustainable development has to be self-determined and community-led, it should not resist the one-size-fits-all model, and it must be forward-looking. And I'm just going to say how I envisage that these principles apply to cultural heritage. So first of all, you can include cultural development. I think that it is very important that all policies on protection of cultural heritage include the right to access and representation of cultural heritage. This is something that UNESCO and I are together in the last 18 months quite closely. So I have been in the committee of the second protocol to the main convention, and we issued a statement, the committee together with my office, that we're saying that we can keep protection of cultural heritage without protection of cultural rights, and that the work of the committee is very much linked to cultural rights. And I'm looking forward to getting to the other committees and ensuring that they understand, UNESCO understand this element. And this is something that has been a priority of my mandate since I took over in October 2021. As I mentioned before, UNESCO has been doing some amazing work on cultural rights and cultural heritage, and we have now created some projects together, and we work very closely together. So the United Nations and the right to cultural benefit from the problems that they have, that UNESCO has, and UNESCO can benefit from the work that we have been doing and the standards that are set up for cultural heritage. What is the added value of this? The added value of this is that the United Nations has very specific monitoring mechanisms. So on Part 15 of the International Conference on Economic, Cultural Rights has effect-specific monitoring mechanism for the state. The state has to submit a report, and this report goes to the community, and the community discusses whether they implement the Article 15. The human rights framework also has my role to ensure that the right cultural heritage is implemented. So the human rights framework is quite which the mechanisms of implementation are a little bit more rigorous than the UNESCO's, and also the rules in society in the United Nations framework is much more hard than the role of NGOs in UNESCO. At the same time, we have a lot of UNESCO work that they have already been doing on cultural heritage, as I said. So this is how I think the cultural development relates to cultural So in this respect, I think that the reversal of inequalities and stereotypes is very important. And I always give the example in a Local Delta, which program in the 70s in Greece, the first book I read, and so forth, that children of my generations read, was the Local Delta. And in there, although the books are still very, very popular and very interesting, but even there was a lot of talk about the heroic Greeks and the barbaric Turks. So that was settled. So I think that this narrative went through at least the people of my generation from a very, very early stage. And I think that this is not, the Greek model is, you can see this everywhere. So it is really important that cultural heritage, protecting cultural heritage, reverses the inequalities and reverses the stereotypes. In my official visit to Germany, when I went there, I thought that a lot of work would have been done. This aspect that the society sometimes choose the least controversial minorities or migrants or other cultural heritage to protect, which maintains the stereotypes and maintains the inequalities. The third kind of principle that I put down was that the sustainable development should be self-determined and community-led. And again, I was delighted, as I said, to listen to the expert talking about this project that a lot of work has been done on participation. I wonder whether we can move on from experts. I am experts. Of course, we'll take experts' views and whatnot, but also discuss about the views and the opinions and the priorities of the local population and the views and the priorities of the different parts of the society. I followed with great interest the discussion about the repaving of the Acropolis, and I was very interested to see the extent of participation and folk-like groups and inclusion of the local population, in addition to experts and what they felt should take place. But also when we talk about community-led, for example, when we have migration museums, it is very obvious to me that migration museums to a very high degree, many parts, definitely in Europe that I have visited, and I have talked to their directors, focus on how amazing experts see that migration has taken place. And when I go to the question that how many migrants have consulted about this, the response at best is that we have these wonderful experts. So I think that it is very important in the future of cultural heritage is an inclusive future. And when I talk of the participation, I don't just talk about the token of migration, the token migrant that is going to come and say, yes, the project is doing very well, but what I am talking is also being looked at by the local communities or the local populations or the minority migrants, women, the people that such exhibitions and such a development of cultural practices and local support. The fourth principle is about this is a one-size-fits-all, and I think that I don't need to say anything more than this. And the fifth was about forward-looking, and I put it land against it as in your project where you talk about digitalization. Digitalization at the moment is a very big buzzword, but also it makes us think about the future and the discussions and limits of artificial intelligence when it comes to the protection of cultural heritage is very important. So, we have the amazing benefits that we can take from AI and artificial intelligence, amazing benefits. Benefits that in time we hear a lot of people saying to me that lesser known languages are not going to survive artificial intelligence. And I know that in Quebec there is a lot of discussion about the French language and how the French language is going to survive artificial one should not forget the importance of education when it comes to the various aspects of formal education when it comes to cultural heritage. And I think that for the development of the individual, for the development of their identity, and again, looking at the past, understanding the past, criticizing the past as well, so that we can move to the future. And I think that in Greece, as somebody who grew up in Greece, Greece is a tradition, I still have my family in Greece, and I'm kind of half the year in Greece. So we have given and my generation, my experience is that we have given the conferences of the past. However, I think we can be very sensitive when it comes to criticizing the past. And in doing so, maybe we have not been able to open up cultural heritage to others, and also have a more reflective understanding of how our past is going to get us to our future. In this respect, Cyprus in the report said that it emphasizes the importance of cultural heritage in education. And I think that these are the main issues that I want to talk about when it comes to the link between cultural heritage and human sustainable development. I'm delighted to hear more about this project, but also more about views regarding cultural heritage. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Professor Xanthaki. Your presentation was mostly inspiring, and you have given us the whole framework concerning the human dimension of cultural heritage through the protection of human rights, but also by clarifying concepts like cultural development or processes as the role of education in the way we reflect, perceive, exert critique to our cultural heritage, and the ways we move forwards concerning cultural creativity. And I'm very happy to hear that the adoption of a fourth pillar in sustainable development goals in the post-2030 agenda is under discussions. It will be a really challenging task, but we are looking forward to hearing more. And now please allow me to give the floor to our next speaker, Manos Boulioukas, from the European Cultural Tourism Network, who is going to present us on the social sustainability dimensions as provided by the best practices guides of ReInΗerit.
You have to be very good.
Yes. Manos Boulioukas is the Secretary General of the European Cultural Tourism Network. He has an extensive experience in the field of cultural tourism. He has participated in many EU-funded projects related to cultural tourism, and he is the main author of the PCTM's Charter for Sustainable Cultural Tourism. So I'm pretty sure that he's the most suitable person to give us very useful insight concerning policies related to cultural tourism. And when you're ready, you have the floor.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Good morning, everybody. I would like to start by congratulating the organizers, our partners in the ReInΗerit project, the Blue Shield BS-GreekNationalCommittee for organizing this, because we had a lot of interaction in the project, or as it is officially called, the Coordinator Support Action for ReInΗerit. We have a lot of interaction via online facilities like Zoom and MS Teams and so on. But it's very nice to come together in a physical sense, which actually last time we had this as a consortium was last year, so it's almost a year ago. We had other events, like we had an event in Brussels and an event in Cyprus, but this was side events and only few partners participated. By way of introduction, I would like to outline the role of the CTN and what we do. We were formed in Brussels in May 2009, so next year we'll celebrate 15 years of activities. It was a merger of two previous networks. One had the South and East focus, European, South and East Europe members, and the other one had North and West, so we came together and we joined the two networks. And currently now, we started with 6 members, now we have 39 members in 21 countries. Actually, I'm very pleased to say that now this is 40 members in 22 countries, because last week we were joined by the first member we have in France, Simon Loire. And we have also not only EU countries, but also non-EU or accession countries, like Georgia, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Moldova maybe. As a CTN, we're proud that we're a founding member of the European Heritage Alliance, which was formed in 2010 by some 30 organizations. Now there are 60 organizations of cultural heritage all over Europe, all the pan-European bodies like ICOMOS, ICOM, NIMO. They're members. We're the only member, or we used to be the only member that had exclusive tourism focus. Now, actually, there's also European Travel Commission, and next door have joined since. This is run by Europa Nostra. You're very familiar. The aim is to bring together all the cultural heritage organizations in Greece, in Europe, to work together to influence also the European policies, in European Union institutions, programs, and so forth. Currently, there is an initiative to influence the next European elections. First of all, to mobilize people to go and vote, especially the younger generations, and put the cultural heritage on the agenda of the European elections next year, the European Parliament. The other membership we have is in the European Tourism Manifesto Alliance, which actually there are 60 organizations that come from the tourism sector. So at one stage we were the only organization that had a membership of both the European Heritage Alliance and the European Tourism Manifesto Alliance. So we bring together these two sectors, the cultural heritage and the tourism sector, all over Europe and at pan-European level through European Union institutions. And we're very proud that we were selected in 2018, 5 years ago, to be a stakeholder of the European Cultural Heritage Year, 2018, which now actually still produces results, as we'll hear later as well. Now the Tourism Manifesto has the European elections also in sight, and we're trying to bring the cultural heritage into the tourism sector and bring the cultural tourism aspects into the cultural heritage. Now, the best practices on cultural heritage management is actually the full title. This is a task aligned to the legacy of the European Year of Cultural Heritage 2018, so still have a link to that, through the framework of action on cultural heritage that was produced a year later, 2019. The idea is to boost skills on cultural heritage professionals, so the The handbook that Jaime presented also fits into this framework. The overall objective to produce a handbook for professionals and the best practice guide, which we'll talk about, and to enhance knowledge on communication and collaboration, on conservation and preservation, including cultural tourism development, through mobility exchanges, study visits. We had a study visit in Brussels in May, and implications for research and innovation. The final task, which is very important, is also to produce or draft the implications for research and innovation agenda for the next, or so-called next Horizon program. Actually, the current Horizon Europe program that started last year and will go on until 2027 officially, but with the N+3 2030. So there's plenty of time to influence this research and innovation agenda through our outputs. There are three tasks in this work: the study visits to cultural heritage organizations, that I mentioned. We had a study visit in Brussels last May. The handbook that Jaime presented for museums and heritage sites to enhance collaboration and communication with guidelines, and the best practice guide, which is actually based on inputs of all partners and actually stakeholders as well, that were here today, some stakeholders, for sustainable cultural heritage models. In terms of what we call a best practice, or what qualifies as a best practice, is an initiative, a project, a policy, a system, a process, a technique, a strategy, a methodology, a solution, a plan, or a routine, a benchmark, a standard, perhaps, a baseline, a convention that somebody has set up, an approach, even an informal approach, a scheme, a measure, or a model, which has proven to be successful in a specific place or situation, and which has the possibility to be transferred to another region, wholly or partly, with adaptations. Of course, the best practice cannot be transferred 100% as it is in one place. It has to be adapted, and perhaps parts of it, or maybe combined with other best practices. So that's by the way of definition. In terms of reporting, all partners contribute to relevant best practices online. There's an online form which partners and stakeholders can fill in and submit. It has to be, this form is based on proven successful model of Interreg Europe good practice database, so-called good practice database. Now there is a discussion, is it good practice or is it best practice? Here we will call it best practice. So it is even better than the good practice. It has to be outstanding in that sense. And the contents is the title, the summary, the description itself, the resources required to implement, the challenges that have been faced and solutions found, evidence of success, very important, what makes a good practice successful, and with some metrics perhaps, but not necessarily, it could be also qualitative, potential for learning or transfer, keywords and websites and further information that the user can find out more about best practice, because the best practice description is very brief, a limited number of characters, and therefore there's other procedure. If somebody's interested, gets a description of 1,000 words, and then can go to find out more about what the best practice is all about in further details in reports or websites and so forth. Now, at LCTN, we also involve our members, our 40+ members, to get expertise, to identify and document suitable best practices in other countries external to the consortium that we have here, the 8 countries we have here. We have further 20 other countries that we can involve, or we're involved in. And not only on cultural tourism, I must say, because our members have access to the cultural heritage professionals in its destination, and therefore can bring in best practices of cultural heritage management in the destinations as appropriate. The guide includes implications for the Horizon Europe, or will include the Horizon Europe Research and Innovation Agenda, and This all is included in the digital hub. Actually, we were hoping to launch today, but in the next days, if you go to the heritage, to the digital hub of ReInΗerit, there's a special link on the menu, and you can connect with the best practices. It's still not active today, but it will be active in the next days. Now, examples of best practices could be in archaeology, cultural heritage, tourism, UNESCO World Heritage Sites, European Heritage Label Sites, cultural roots of Council of Europe. I was very pleased to hear from Professor Xanthaki mentioned heritage interpretation. That's also eligible. Interesting industrial heritage and intangible heritage, something that is sometimes forgotten. And other forms of heritage, maritime, coastal, culinary heritage for gastronomy, tourism in particular, greening the cultural heritage with climate actions. Also, virtual reality, augmented reality, gamification, metaverse, if appropriate, if there's something already to report. CCIs, cultural creative industries, contribution, in particular to cultural creative tourism, but not only. The cultural heritage management based on CCIs, and enhance the visitor experience. This is very important. That's all what we do with digitalization, how the visitor can get a better experience, an immersive experience, or inspiring experience through digital means in particular. The several types that you can choose in the menu, from general cultural heritage management to smart tourism, to digital exhibitions that we have in ReInΗerit, to sustainability, accessibility, environmental and climate change impacts, VR, AR, virtual reality, innovation, knowledge forms, anything innovative is of interest, IPR, intellectual property rights, also maybe we should have this cultural rights, communication between museums and heritage sites according to the handbook. All these are interesting and eligible aspects to report. Now, I'd like to highlight one best practice that we have developed. It's a cultural route development based on intangible heritage. It's about the mythology, poetry, theater, and visual arts of Argonautica. The Argonautic exhibition that is mythology, but also is the poet in poetry, Apollonis Rhodius. It's also in the Greek ancient theater. It's depicted in paintings and frescoes of the Renaissance all over Europe, sculptures, and also contemporary art in the various languages, and also Hollywood films, artifacts that are scattered all over Europe, from Louvre in France, pottery, statue in V&A Museum in London, Jason, also in Barcelona Museum in Florence, in Versailles, fresco, the arrival of Jason in Colchis. So there is a lot of material there, artifacts, cultural heritage in all its forms that can be used to develop cultural heritage products and services, and for us, cultural tourism, sustainable cultural tourism. Through Greece to Colchis, the ancient Colchis in Georgia, modern day Georgia, through the Danube to the Adriatic Sea, through Italy to the Tyrrhenian Sea, North Africa back to the Aegean Sea, and glorious return to Iolkos, present-day Volos in Greece, my hometown, and eventually to Corinth, and that's also depicted in the, or included in the Euripides Medea and some theater. Other best practices highlights that we can mention come from within the ReInΗerit project, like the ReInΗerit shop that is active on the digital hub, where you can download a lot of information, a lot of digital artifacts. Very interesting also. Even Christmas cards you can download. This is by the Bank of Cyprus Cultural Foundation, documented. The co-creation workshops with university students by the Museum of Cycladic Art. Game of traces on CCI's and cultural capital of Matera, by Matera Hub. There's the Styrian iron route, very interesting, in Austria, by the University of Graz. and by the Greek Committee of Blue Shield, the Parago being produced with agricultural connections. So that's all I have to say about the best practice. It will be active very soon. We welcome all partners to continue contributing, and this will be online in addition to the webinars and to the cultural heritage fact sheets and all the rest of it that is in the digital hub and the digital exhibitions. There's a lot of material there. There will be also the best practices that anybody can download, find out more information if necessary, but also contribute. And we will encourage stakeholders to contribute. They will not be directly visible. They will go through some kind of evaluation, will give some feedback if there is some improvements that can be made or some clarifications, but eventually will be visible on the digital hub and will be with credits to the author and to the owner of the best practice. The author could be different to the owner. As long as the author identifies the owner and gives credit to whom has implemented this best practice, but somebody else can document it. That's perfectly acceptable also in internet. There's no issue of property rights. If you feel that you have to request permission by the owner, you can do that as well. Okay,
thank you so much. You have reached everything reference to education, the significance of education that was mentioned by Professor Santaki. Peer knowledge, codified peer knowledge. This is what peer knowledge. It's empirical knowledge shared by professionals, which is a very useful practical guide for other professionals. This work is precious, but also you have mentioned intellectual property rights issues having to do with this best practices guide that will be public in a short while, which was also mentioned by Professor Stamatis at the beginning of our conference. Thank you so much. And now I will move.
Can I add that?
Yes, of course.
The skills, the connection with skills is very strong. It's developing skills for cultural heritage professionals in addition, of course, to what skills they have, in new forms of expressions and so forth. And this year, particularly, is the European Year of Skills. So we're also connecting with this. We'll contribute to the European Year of Skills that will actually run until middle of next year. So this is also very strong synergy.
Thank you so much. And now we give the floor to the Ferit Bandeka from the Cycladic Museum, the Museum of Cycladic Art. Neferi is a coordinator and researcher for European Union funded projects at the Museum of Cycladic Art. She has extensive experience as a project manager and researcher in the fields, in projects in the fields of entrepreneurship, circular economy, and culture. Neferi will Neferi's presentation is entitled The Right to Accessibility in Museums and the ReInΗerit Project.
Hello everyone, I'm so happy to be here today. Before we proceed with our presentation on accessibility in museums and the ReInΗerit case, I would like to show you a brief video that has been produced in the framework of ReInΗerit, just to introduce you to the framework of accessibility and inclusion in museums. So now that the technical issues are resolved, let's begin. So my name is Nefeli Pantalia. I work at the Museum of Cycladic Art as an EU projects coordinator. Today we will talk about the right to accessibility in museums and the ReInΗerit project. First of all, what we all know is that museums are very much connected to social demands. Museums are committed to expand the scope of their activities to increase inclusion levels and community engagement. Of course, this is made possible by the creation of a series of actions such as educational activities, workshops, guided tours, as well as the use of new technologies, both inside and outside the museum. Of course, these actions address the wider public and, of course, vulnerable social groups. Museums, in this way, they try to fulfill their journey in a way to become more accessible and inclusive for all. Accessibility needs to be a central perspective when we plan our strategic operations, and of course it has to be a key component of exhibition planning. Accessibility in museums means that museum services are accessible to all who can visit, look around and experience what each museum offers. This happens when different information, from practical information such as museum opening hours and ticket prices to content of the exhibition, and different activities are organized and offered in multi-sensory ways. I would like to say just a few words on the Museum of Cycladic Art and what we have done so far in terms of accessibility. This is an overview of our building and the Staphatos Mansion, which is a historical building in the center of Athens. As you can see, first of all, accessibility begins at the entrance of each building. You can see our accessibility ramps over here, but it does not end here, of course. The Museum of Cycladic Art was founded in 1986 to host the archaeological collection of Nikolaos Sandouli with works of Cycladic and ancient Greek art. Currently, our permanent collections are organized in 4 thematic units: Cycladic culture, ancient Greek culture, Cypriot culture, and scenes of everyday life in antiquity. The exhibition of Cycladic art is one of the most complete private collections of Cycladic art in the world. Marble figurines, vases made of marble clay and bronze tools shed light on the civilization in the 3rd millennium BC. The museum's exhibition of ancient Greek art traces a journey through time, focuses on the indelible socio-political developments such as the birth of the ancient city, the emergence of democracy, and the creation of the first Mediterranean empires, with the exhibition of Cypriot antiquities of Thanos and Dilis to be also one of our largest collections and very important, with numerous objects telling the story of an island civilization that combined Aegean, Egyptian, and Near Eastern influences in art. Of course, the tour of the museum is completed with a collection of objects that revive everyday life in the city of classical times, using Athens as a guide, combining explanatory texts with audiovisual presentation and 3D illustrations. As you can see, our collections are in a contemporary style. There are interactive media, and apart from that, permanent collections are accessible by people with hearing loss, while cycladic art collection is accessible by also people with blindness. As you can see, we have these sign language videos. And apart from that, over the 10 years, the Museum of Cycladic Art focused on finding ways to address and support visitors with sensory disabilities. Inclusive educational activities were developed and implemented by the museum for children and adults with visual impairments and children and adults who are deaf and hard of hearing. We managed to increase accessibility, and this was made possible also through programs and research programs, namely, which supported inclusion. We collaborated with other distinguished institutions in the framework of EU-funded projects, and of course we had a direct collaboration with the immediate target groups and schools for the blind. The program In Touch was launched in 2022 to enable people with sensory disabilities, including vision and hearing impairment, to access the permanent Cycladic art exhibition. The program was realized within the framework of the European Erasmus Plus program and implemented with the support of our strategic partner, Eurolife FFH. It was designed in close collaboration with a non-profit organization called Meala Matia, and Hands Up, the first sign language interpreting company in Greece, and was launched for the people, for the visitors, after a pilot which ran with focus groups with individuals with sensory impairment. It includes 3 main components: a thematic tour and a mobile showcase for persons with visual impairment, multisensory museum kit related to Cycladic culture featuring the marble figures of the Cycladic collection of the museum and the associated geographical historical background, and a series of actions to make the museum accessible to deaf or hard of hearing persons. The permanent exhibition of Cycladic art includes a video of a recorded tour in the Greek Sign Language, accompanied by Greek subtitles and international signs with English subtitles. As you can see here, this is the mobile showcase. So what